And just from a staff perspective, you know, it's the board's decision or desire to postpone this project to a future meeting. We don't have to wait until November. The board can schedule meetings anytime it wishes. And so we could look to scheduling a meeting before the November meeting. So that's something for you to think about as well.
Thank you. And then that's helpful to really kind of hear where we're at and what the impact of this will be. I'm curious about, you know, a lot of the discussion that Diane just kind of led with staff on some of the decisions around the process and the difference in conservation values of some of this property. Why do we think there's such a difference in understanding of what the conservation values are between kind of the proponents of the project and the department and the stakeholders that are opposing? I understand that there is this difference and we feel good about our data, but I'm curious if we can get a sense of why do we feel like there's this significant difference in our understanding. I'm not a scientist. I've never been to the place, and it's a tough position to be in, right? To say, okay, we're really hearing this is what the value is. Stakeholders have charts and data and information that are saying, no, this is what the value is, and wanting to understand why we think there's such a significant difference in that. And if we have a sense of why there might be such a different understanding of what the conservation land values are there.
From the biological, I'll ask either Nathan and or Ed or Dave Mayer to opine on that. I think, you know, they're probably seated in the best position to really understand differences of the biological conclusions that have either come up through their process and or hearing information from the opponents about their information. I think they're best to answer that. If they would, or take a few minutes to do that.
Sure, John, I can take that one too. So, and this is my sense of things that you'll probably hear from proponents and those opposed, their views on why that may be also. But I think at heart, what this comes down to is the basic dispute that led to the original dispute resolution agreement itself. And that's the status of these parcels known as Proctor Valley 1, 2, and 3. And the status of those under the MSCP and county sub-area plan. As Chuck mentioned, in the lead up to negotiating the dispute resolution agreement starting in, I believe it was March 2019, the department and the county were headed on a collision course relative to the status of PV 1, 2, and 3 under the MSCP and the county sub-area plan. From the state's point of view, from CDFW's point of view, as Chuck mentioned, we were very clear that we considered that to be preserved under the MSCP. The county was very clear from its perspective, it was developable. And the county was moving forward with its approvals. CDFW was expressing its concerns with that. But ultimately, the main message that we kept relaying is that we were trying to come to an understanding on the basic grounds of things, one of which was that notwithstanding the fact that CDFW was arguing that this was preserved and the county was arguing it was developable, the MSCP was clear and the parties did agree that it was identified as no take authorized. And that's what allowed us to have those conversations working from that common understanding to develop the dispute resolution agreement, which also, those discussions, which ultimately resulted in 3 processes to go through, one of which being this land exchange. But at its heart, I believe the status of PV 1, 2, and 3 and the various parties' view on that under the MSCP and the proponents and the opponents of this project, those play out in how you see the views of the land conversion evaluation and other issues.
Yeah, Mary, you can't underscore, this is a long running, like decades, and very important debate between all these parties about the status of PV 1, 2, and 3. And a lot of that was decided by people, our early predecessors. And while we have our view about that, if forced into litigation, I also think if everyone was being honest, they'd say there's ambiguity around that history. And how you view 1, 2, and 3 really shapes a lot of the energy you're going to hear this afternoon. And I think that drives some of the differences of opinions. And under what the department has done, 1 and 3 are now fully, permanently, no ambiguity preserved.
Thank you. I'm going to let some other folks talk, and I'm going to stay on here and miss this other call because this is such an important conversation. I don't want to throw a wrench too much into all the hard work that the department and WCB has put into this, but I would appreciate either moving this to November or a meeting between now and November to take just this item on, and having that conversation with the landowner, asking them for a little bit more time. There are still some questions here that I just want to dig in and understand a little bit more to do due diligence as a board member. And I don't feel adequately prepared to do that. I haven't even had time to meet with all the stakeholders who've asked to meet with me. I had to call it like 6:30 last night to meet with somebody too. I just feel like to do the due diligence, really understand what's going on and make a good conversation or a good decision on behalf of the board. I need some more information and be able to dig in and kind of compare some of the information that's coming at us from a lot of different groups. So that would be my preference, is being able to take this up and have a little bit of time to better understand it and make a good decision here.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I know Alina started to talk, and I see Fran has her hand up. So Alina, we'll go to you next, and then Fran, you'll follow.
Thank you, John. And, I just want to echo kind of the other board member comments about I know there's been a pretty heavy lift on the staff side to provide all of the information from both the proponents and also the opponents to the project. So just, thank you and kudos to the staff. Also want to just echo that we have received a lot of information and have not had much time to turn it around. So I think, although I have looked at some of the information, I was not able to look at everything. And so I also have a certain amount of discomfort in terms of being able to make an informed decision today. And so, definitely want to hear the presentations and the speakers today on the project, but also, echo I think Mary's comments on the desire to want to, have more time to kind of review the information before making a decision. So, but obviously we'll leave that up to the board. So one of my questions was, it sounds like September is a pretty firm date for when we would be hearing back from U.S. Fish and Wildlife on kind of their analysis on the exchange. And so I guess my question is, the degree of confidence pretty high that we would be hearing back next month from them on kind of their assessment of the proposed land exchange?
It is.
Okay. And then, I know that what was presented was that there have been, this is not a precedent-setting project in terms of there have been previous land exchanges approved by the board in the past. But I guess I would like to hear from the staff whether the previous land exchanges did in fact have the type of, conservation protection that I think both the Section 6 and also the state code has for these lands that are being considered for the exchange. Because, I think that is also a concern for me, is the fact that we did support the protection of these lands in perpetuity. and that, you know, I think as Diane mentioned in, you know, I think whether there's the legal context, but then there's also best practices and, you know, and a best practice of, you know, meeting a higher bar of habitat value as a result of the exchange. So I guess it would be, you know, I don't know if that question could be answered now in terms of if the previous land exchanges had a similar set of, I guess, conditions in terms of the level of protection that these properties currently have because of both the federal and state funding to them. So that's one other question I have.
I can briefly take that, and I don't think of the 5 that were mentioned by Chuck had any federal Section 6 dollars associated with them. But when WCB did acquire those for the department, you know, we were, you know, we envisioned those in perpetuity. But, you know, recognizing that things change on the ground, issues come along that prompt this kind of consideration, that happened in those situations. But I can almost guarantee, and I can look while folks are talking, that there was no federal Section 6 associated with that. And if Colin, if you know right offhand, I know you did a little research on the past 5 exchanges.
Hey, John Walsh. Yeah, there was not that I know of.
Okay.
I mean, thank you. And I think to me, this is why I think it's really important to have the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service weigh in on this exchange because of the fact that there were federal dollars that went into protecting this this property. And so I think, you know, without having them kind of opine on the project and to discuss both the habitat value exchange, and I think the discussion of, you know, even the whole you know, within the dispute resolution agreement, kind of Diane's, you know, question related to why isn't there funding committed to the restoration and of lands that would be exchanged to help, you know, reach a higher habitat value, I think is a valid one. So I think, you know, I think in terms of really thinking about timing in this instance, I also think it's just important to, you know, have some determination or opinion from Fish and Wildlife Service on this, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on this, given the fact of, you know, this was identified obviously as an area of high habitat value and protection for federal dollars. So with that, you know, I do want to obviously give our speakers an opportunity to speak, but so I'll keep the rest of my questions or comments toward the end. Thank you.
Hey, John, this is Eric Sklar. Can I weigh in real quickly?
Sure.
Yeah, you know, I think that what I'm hearing, and I'm agreeing that we are going to need to postpone this most likely. I think there's more information we need. And my suggestion would be that we do a special meeting just on this topic sometime, you know, late October, September, early October. So we don't delay it any more than we have to, but also so that it stands alone. It's tough to do this within the context of a very full meeting. I think we're going to start losing people. I may have to cut off in about 4 minutes. I'm hoping I can cancel that meeting. But that would be my suggestion from the start.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Fran, did you have another comment? I see your hands raised. Okay, I don't know if Fran's having problems or not.
That's me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right.
Just real quickly, there's, I think about 5 of us now have sort of seen that we want to hear from people today, so we'll probably start talking. We should probably know that we'll be continuing it after the Fish and Wildlife thing. Probably, I would support what Eric said on a separate meeting day so that this doesn't just sort of dominate all the discussion of anything else on the agenda. We can focus on it, and that way all letters and information from staff can come on just as one item, because it's been just real difficult with all the different supplemental files coming in and out, still receiving things yesterday. So probably an October date somewhere. And I look forward to hearing the testimony today, but letting your staff know, John, maybe there's still 3 or 4 of those. We're hearing the same kinds of questions several times over, and those are the ones we will focus in on. And I want both the proponents and the opponents of the project to have a chance to address those specifically when this item is continued to a later date.
John, if I may, really quick, the board, it's your prerogative to delay this if you want. I did just want to mention from a legal perspective that when a project is challenged on CEQA grounds, which some of the opponents seem to be suggesting now, it's very common for a slew of documents to come in to the board at the 11th hour.
Yeah.
So certainly you can delay. I just want to mention, I think it's very likely that the same thing will occur before the next meeting, and that you'll have a lot of documents sent at the last minute. So I want to make the board aware of that. Thank you, Colin. Yeah.
John, this is Diane, can I make just one comment real
Yes.
quick? No. Yeah, I just, since it looks like maybe we're moving to postponement on this, I just wanted to make a comment, and I would like to have us go ahead and hear the speakers that have been waiting to speak on this, but that I don't know that whatever the Fish and Wildlife Service does is necessarily definitive for our decision. I mean, I think it's one more piece of information that's helpful to know, but it's not necessarily definitive. There might be another, since there is this pending litigation, the CEQA, I guess if I'm correct, there's at least 2 lawsuits pending, one on the DRA and one on the underlying EIR that was relied on. And if that one is coming up for hearing, I understand perhaps in September. And so that would be very relevant. And I'm a little uncomfortable voting on something with litigation pending that could end up throwing into question the underlying, CEQA analysis that was done for this project. So anyway, just FYI.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that I don't want us just to be thinking like, okay, we get the Fish and Wildlife Service's answer and then that answers all the questions for us, because I'm not sure that it does.
Right, your action will be an independent action, separate and apart from Fish and Wildlife Service.
John, yeah, I mean, I agree, Diane. I think it's just one of a number of points of information, but my understanding is that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife does have to approve this exchange, right? So they are one of a number of entities that need, that are part of part of the agencies that have to kind of bless the land exchange. So I think given that, they still haven't officially made their determination, I agree it's one of many points of information, but I do think that, to me, it makes sense to wait until they, weigh in on this land exchange. So.
Okay. Is there any other board member at this time would like to make comments? If not, I will start the speaker card process. So hearing none, we do have several speakers for both sides, both those who oppose the project as well as those who support the project. And I'm going to call you at random. I don't want to it be perceived that we're calling all the proposal or proponents at first, and then by the time all the opponents get through with their folks, forget what the proponents have said. So I'm gonna jump around from proponents to opponents. So I hope that's okay. So I'll call a couple names in advance, And just so give you a heads up, and so you can be prepared to unmute your phone, unmute your computer, and get on board. I would like to remind you that we're allowing 3 minutes, and I will set an alarm, and you'll hear the alarm go off. So please pay attention to that, and don't feel offended if I do have to cut you off. And I know there's a lot of passion on both sides to this. But I think for us to be able to get through this afternoon, I think holding comments to 3 minutes is appropriate. So with that, I would like to call on Liz Jackson with Jackson Proto Development Company. After her, Rob Cameron, and then after Rob, it would be Kim Delfino and Sarah Wan. So Liz.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, Chair. I guess it's afternoon now, Chair Donnelly, or Director Donnelly, members of the Wildlife Conservation Board. I'm Liz Jackson, President of Jackson Proto Development Company, speaking on behalf of the applicant owner. First and foremost, thank you. I was hoping you could put slide 3 back on the screen while I speak. The land exchange. You ready? Okay. The land exchange before you today is the product of an extensive process between the County of San Diego, CDFW, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the property owner. The land exchange adds 300 acres to the MSCP preserve, reduces 13 miles of edge effects, and widens open space corridors, all contributing to superior preserve design. The land exchange meets real and verifiable MSCP standards that have been documented and openly presented in hundreds of pages of public review material, carefully considered and affirmed by the County Board of Supervisors, then again carefully reviewed and considered by your staff and CDFW in making their recommendations. My message today is simple. The WCB's role is certainly to listen and consider differing perspectives, which you will do. You will listen to both sides, but the most important and compelling voice here isn't Endangered Habitats League, and it isn't mine. The most compelling voice is your WCB staff, your CDFW staff, and your legal counsel's perspective. And I'd like to add that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was very involved here. They supported the DRA processes. They reviewed the land conversion evaluation in detail. They sat at the table hashing out Keno and other land exchange issues. Stepping back, we understand that there's opposition, and that's the process. But you don't need to be in the middle here. You have the bigger perspective picture, backed up with hours of protocol scientific surveys and field work, crosswalking the site, documented field notes and GPS waypoints, and analysis from hard-working trained biologists at Helix, Dudek, H.T. Harvey, and the biologists from the county, CDFW, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Side by side, you have 2 projects, and one of these will get built. The county, as the legal land use authority, has approved both. There is not a no project alternative before you. So you have the opportunity here to support MSCP conflict resolution. You have the opportunity to make preserve ownership contiguous, the preserve larger and more efficiently managed. You have the opportunity to rely on your staff and CDFW's thoughtful work in making the recommendations, and I hope you see the merits of the land exchange through that lens. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Liz. Next up is Rob Cameron. Rob, are you on? Okay, we'll come back to Rob. Kim Delfino. Kim, are you on? And remember to unmute yourselves.
I did.
Okay, there you are.
Okay, I hope you guys can hear me. I had to, I'm doing this on my computer, so sometimes I don't have great, sorry, okay, I'll go forward. So let me just start out by saying that I really appreciate the board members digging into this issue. I think it is actually a case of an unprecedented land exchange proposal, because what we have here is exchanging lands that is high value habitat lands for a critically endangered species, irrespective of whether it's state listed or not, in exchange for facilitating a significant development in a high value area. And the WCB has never done something like this before. I think that others will go to this point, but the exchange does not meet the requirements of state law. You are supposed to look at the value of the lands that you're exchanging for the value of the land you're receiving. And even the department itself has said that those values are not equal. And the other thing I would just like to note here is that, you know, this is really, if this is allowed to proceed, I do think that the Wildlife Conservation Board has been put in the middle here. This is a situation where you have a county and a developer who have for years flaunted the MSCP and what the MSCP stands for, and has dared the department to challenge it. And I think, you know, the point of it is that PB 1, 2, and 3, which is part of their project that has been approved, is not allowed to be developed. And therefore, they should not be granted credit for somehow protecting these areas. They're already within preserve, 147 acres of preserve that's already been protected. And I really am concerned that if this is allowed to proceed, this will just set a blueprint for future unleashing of preserves that have been approved in the past by the department and the Fish and Wildlife Service as part of the NCCPs. I think you're rewarding very bad behavior. With that being said, I think that, you know, again, I would urge you, if you can, go ahead and do the vote today. If it sounds like you're not prepared to do that. And if you aren't moving forward, I would ask for not just what the Fish and Wildlife Service thinks. I would really dig into, really, do you have a real picture of the value of the lands that you're being asked to swap out for? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim. Sarah Wan.
Can you hear me? I'm speaking for Sarah Wan because she had to go to another meeting.
Who is this?
This is Larry Wan, her husband.
All right, thank you.
So with your permission, I'll present her testimony.
Yes, please go forward.
Yes, she had to go to another meeting. She's speaking for the Western Alliance for Nature. Her resume in this area is quite long, but what you should know is that for 15 years, she has been a coastal commissioner and twice its chair. In addition to that, she has several advanced degrees in the sciences, one of which is a Master of Science from Yale in zoology with emphasis on ecology. As a former regulator, she's appalled that the department has not done its own CEQA review. It is accepting the developer's EIR when it wrote comment letter after comment letter criticizing its defects. These comments have been ignored. Everything she has learned as a scientist and as a coastal commissioner tells her that accurate information is paramount. An experienced biologist has taken photos of what is obvious to any observer is that it is dense grass, and yet the applicant has self-servingly mapped it as intact coastal sage scrub. These photos are damning evidence of mismapping. Your decisions simply cannot rest on such faulty information. Ironically, the land conversion valuations itself admits that the habitat quality of what the department will receive is inferior. What is shown in the highlighted version of the LCE that you were provided with the legal analysis, this is what's shown in that. Faced with these facts, the LCE then invents standards that aren't in statute and makes comparisons to project that the department has set breaches the MSCP, and then counts these breached areas which cannot be developed as conservation gains. How did this happen? The department committed itself in a quote dispute resolution agreement in a foregone conclusion, irrespective of the facts. To retain the integrity of our public lands, please reject this exchange now and not postpone. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir, for your comments. Okay, I would like to ask now for Greg Cox, San Diego County Supervisor.
Thank you, John, for giving me the opportunity to speak this afternoon. You know, I had the opportunity to serve as mayor of the city of Chula Vista in 1988 when the planning first started for the Otay Ranch, and Village 14 was a part of that Otay Ranch plan that was approved by the County of San Diego and by the city of Chula Vista in 1994. Ironically, some of the individuals and some of the organizations that are speaking against this plan now supported that plan. They also supported the plan in 1997 for the MSCP, which anticipated development in these areas. They also supported the general plan update that was completed by the County of San Diego in 2011. So I really find it a little disingenuous that some of these individuals and organizations are now opposing what I think is a far superior plan that was approved by the Board of Supervisors in June of this year. The plan that was approved in June of 2019 allowed for more development, certainly covered more areas, and because of the dispute resolution, and I want to certainly thank the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and certainly the Director Chuck Bonham for sitting down with us in a cooperative vein, a give and take with the developer, with the county, and certainly with their department and others to work out a plan that I think is far superior, that was supported by our board in June of this year. The plan before you now certainly provides much needed housing. That's a need throughout the state of California. Provides improvements to the county's mobility element. Probably most important of all, it contributes significant acreage to the MSC Preserve with funding for management and monitoring in perpetuity. And we've heard that term quite a bit today. I don't think anybody looking at the slide that is before us, slide 3, can argue that the proposed plan now is a better plan than what was approved. And while I get the sense there's going to be a continuation of this item, I would hope there would be a special meeting. Obviously, I know you've got a document dump from Shoot Mahaley and others. It's typical, they always do that the day before the meeting to overwhelm everybody. But I hope we can get this before your board for consideration in a reasonable time frame. I thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Supervisor. Okay, moving on to Rob Cameron, are you on?
Let's try again. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Great, John. Thanks. Technology is obviously not my friend. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rob Cameron with the Cameron Consulting Group, representing GDCI, the property owner project applicant. I actually just filled out a speaker slip today to be available if needed, so I don't need to take your time with a lot of testimony, other than just to point out that the land exchange embodies everything that the wildlife agencies ask of developers. It consolidates the development footprint, creates large blocks of interconnected preserve habitat, eliminates 13 miles of preserved edge effects, and widens wildlife corridors. It reflects how development and preserve should be cooperatively designed, and I hope you reward that effort by supporting the staff recommendation today. Thanks for your time.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to Dan Silver. And while Dan.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the board. Dan Silver, EHL, Endangered Habitats League, has been invested in the NCCP since 1992. I don't have time to correct some of the statements previously made, unfortunately. I'm also testifying on behalf of the Natural Resources Defense Council in case they are not able to join the call. I ask you to exercise your independent judgment. There has been brazen MSCP noncompliance by the county, which should not be rewarded. But now, in an important letter just dated yesterday, the department fully admits that it is giving up higher value habitat in exchange for lower. Quote, the department acknowledges that the CDFW exchange lands currently possess higher biological value in terms of habitat and sensitive species, unquote. So there's no arguing about habitat quality anymore and no arguing over whether the statute is complied with. It simply isn't. The mismapping brazenly fed to the department. Again, the department admits this is so. There is, quote, inconsistent mapping due to either a lack of shrubs or an abundance of grass, unquote. But it then says getting accurate survey data doesn't matter because it already knows the lands it would receive are, quote, not of higher quality, unquote, and, quote, not of a quality to support the sensitive species of greatest concern, unquote. The fact that your decision would be based on bad and incomplete data is no longer arguable. The department then speculates that future development, key parts of which are prohibited by the MSEP, might overcome these on-the-ground habitat quality facts. But the department provides absolutely no evidence of how the habitat values would be reversed, for what species, and somehow convert lower to higher and higher to lower. No evidence at all. In fact, the EIR you would be relying upon, the county's EIR, says there are 0 edge effects. Which set of irreconcilable facts is it? A net benefits test, even if it's true, is not in statute, and we do not believe it's true. The connectivity cited as a benefit would occur regardless as long as the MSEP is enforced. This has become a charade. Please act independently, don't fall for scare tactics, and do the right thing. If denied, the applicant can comply with the MSEP or do a different land exchange that properly places new development adjacent to existing. But adopting the exchange would lock in a biologically horrific outcome of massive development in the single worst location. If you say no, better outcomes can emerge through collaboration to which we are committed. Please reject today and do not postpone, noting that Fish and Wildlife Service has unfortunately disintegrated as an effective regulatory body, and I don't think they're going to add much value. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, William Tippett, Bill Tippett.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay. Good morning. Good afternoon, Chair Bynum, board members, and Director Donnelly. I'm a biologist with 45 years of professional experience working throughout California. And from 1993 to 2004, I was the Department of Fish and Wildlife's NCCP program manager for Southern California. One of the plans I oversaw was the MSCP, of which Otay Ranch and Rancho Jamul are important components. Now, while the NCCPs were never expected to be static plans, and we realize there may be valid reasons to amend them, the organization I'm with, Southwest Wetlands Interpretive Association and others, do not believe that this proposed exchange, which would amend the MSCP reserve, is appropriate or reasonable. The proposed Rancho Jamul and Village 14 exchange areas both support sensitive, threatened, and endangered species, but there's a fundamental difference in the functional habitat values of the proposed exchange lands. Those of Rancho Jamul support higher value resources, more intact habitat, and serve as a more important component of the regional wildlife connection than the proposed Village 14 exchange lands. Habitat acres are not always fungible. So the Rancho Jamul lands retain their high habitat values and support endangered species that serve a needed conservation purpose and should not be exchanged pursuant to PRC Section 5096.516, which says you can only exchange the lands if the lands no longer serve a needed conservation purpose. That's clearly not the case for those lands. And even if that requirement were waived, which I don't see why or it should be given the statute language, the proposal does not meet the findings that the exchange lands provide greater habitat values as wildlife habitat, which has been explained before. Lastly, the PV1 and PV3 properties were always assumed when I was there at the time when this was done, not to be developed in PV1 and PV2 and PV3. So to accord any net additional habitat value and benefit makes no sense on the face of it. I work with various local NGOs around here. We're always willing to work with developers, lead agencies, and the wildlife agencies to find common ground. But this time, this is not the appropriate solution, and we highly suggest that you reject this and let the parties come back again, and we will work in honest openness with you to try to find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next up is Mark Dillon, followed by Dave Hubbard. Mark Dillon. Dave Hubbard. Okay, we'll come back to them. David Lenardi.
Star six. Star six.
Who's talking? Dave Lenardi. Mark Dillon, we'll come back to. Speak up, please.
Can you guys hear me?
Who is this?
David Leonardi.
Yes, please go.
Good morning, members of the Wildlife Conservation Board. My name is David Leonardi. I'm the president of the Deputy Sheriff's Association of San Diego County. Our association represents more than 2,500 deputy sheriffs serving communities throughout San Diego County. The land exchange proposed to you today will lead to an improved, consolidated community that enhances public safety within this community and all those surrounding. Many of our members live far from San Diego due to the housing crisis in San Diego County, and they need to commute far distances to work. The homes that this land exchange will create help our members live closer to the communities that they put their lives on the line to protect. The Deputy Sheriff's Association of San Diego County is proud to support the Otay Ranch land exchange and the consolidated development it will make possible. Please support this proposal that you're considering today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Joe Marie Diamond. What about Mark Dillon? Is he able to get on? Dave Hubbard.
This is Dave Hubbard. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. You're getting a little feedback, but we can hear you.
Is this better now?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm David Hubbard. I'm counsel for the applicant. I'm going to deviate from my presentation and try to address some of the issues that have been raised. And the first one I want to talk about is the debate over PV1, PV2, and PV3. I don't know if you can pull up slide 3, just because it allows us to kind of see what we're talking about. If that slide is available, if you look at the left-hand panel, PV1, 2, and 3 are those parcels that are on the very bottom and shaded in kind of a light brown. That's PV1, 2, and 3. The rest of the areas identified for development in that picture have no relationship to PV1, 2, and 3. There's been a lot of conversation so far today where people are claiming that PV1, 2, and 3 are not designated for development, never have been, and have always been part of the preserve. And that simply is a misstatement of fact. These areas were identified for development given land use designations for development in 1993. When the MSEP plan was approved in 97, that did not disturb the land use designations or developability of those 3 parcels. There was discussion about including them into preserve, but it ended up not happening. And in fact, the 11,375 acre preserve, which is the South County segment, that portion of the preserve that is to be assembled in Proctor Valley, it does not require or rely on any portion of PV 1, 2, and 3 in order to make its full 11,375 acres. PV 1, 2, and 3 were identified for development in the county's 2011 general plan update, and they were approved for development again in 2019 when the county approved the project. And so this idea that PV 1, 2, and 3 have always been in preserve, not true. And while there is and has been debate between the county on one hand and the department on the other about PV 1, 2, and 3, that was really the impetus for having a dispute resolution process. Both sides recognized that the other side had a sharp difference of opinion, and rather than litigate over it, we've come up with a better plan. And if you look,
please start concluding your comments. Thank you.
Okay. Real quickly, there was a statement earlier that the appraisal that was done by the developer's appraiser. Not true. The appraiser was selected by all parties, was not the developer's appraiser. And to the extent that there's concern about mismapping and...
All right.
Hey,
so
John.
I'll conclude my comments. Thanks.
John, this is Eric Sklar. I just want to let you know I have to get off now. But you've heard my position is that we ought to delay this until October, number 1, and number 2. I'll go back. It's being recorded, and I will go back and listen to it from here on, so I hear all the testimony before their next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Okay, can we move on to Frank Landis? Or
Can you hear
Jay
me?
Ziegler?
Can
Frank?
you hear me? This is Frank Landis.
Yes.
Oh, good. Good afternoon, Director Connolly and honorable members of the board. My name is Frank Landis, and I'm the Conservation Chair for the San Diego chapter of the California Native Plant Society, and I speak for all of CNPS on this issue. My background is that I have a PhD and a master's in botany, specializing in vegetation and community ecology, with experience as a consultant and with NGOs. I've lived in San Diego for the last decade, and I know the plants and vegetation pretty well. I'm here to urge you to vote against Rancho Humboldt Land Exchange, and please do not postpone this decision. Please note that the conclusion of the staff report was preordained. They were contractually obligated to support the exchange by signing the dispute resolution agreement. They signed based on inaccurate data provided to them by the developer. The department was given inaccurate data by the developers to the quality of the exchange lands, as you've heard already. At least 198 acres were grossly mismapped. Mr. Hamilton will speak to this more, but I found it very easy to verify his findings simply by driving through the area on the one public road. It was obvious to me as an ecologist that the vegetation was not what was reported. It was not high quality intact chaparral coastal sage scrub as represented in the AIR, but rather disturbed coastal sage scrub with a heavy thatch of annual non-native grasses and forbs. This vegetation cannot support the endangered Kino checker spot butterfly despite statements to the contrary. You could see this in slides 4 and 5 in the presentation. The argument that the MSCP tiers apply here is false, as what is being called intact coastal sage scrub does not meet that description and does not belong in that tier. This is a travesty. Furthermore, if you take the EIR at face value, the biologists doing botanical surveys had to walk 40 miles per day for 5 days straight, part of the time identifying hand-sized annual plants of 2 species that can only be separated with a hand lens and accurately counting and mapping every single one. Part of this 40 miles per day survey also went through intact chaparral where they mapped individual shrubs. The survey they claimed to have made for sensitive plants was not physically possible. Please read this skeptically. To trade away public lands on the basis of false information would be unconscionable. We will never protect California's natural resources from climate change and other threats if we tolerate bad data, let alone act on it. As I'm sure you know, CNPS as an organization has worked for decades with the department on many important projects, including the CNDDB. Nevertheless, by a unanimous vote of the State Board of Directors, CNPS opposes this project. We would like to work cooperatively to find better solutions to San Diego's housing shortage and looming extinction crisis. And thank you for taking my and all our testimony.
Great, thank you, Mr. Landis. Jay Ziegler?
Yes, good afternoon. Board members, my name is Jay Ziegler. I am the Director of Policy for the Nature Conservancy in California. The Conservancy has been involved actively in the MSCP and NCCP program on the ground since 1992. In fact, we have toured the Rancho Jamul area with our Board of Trustees as a paramount example of public-private cooperation necessary to achieve the kinds of habitat and human livability and sustainability on the land that the WCB, Department of Fish and Wildlife, have partnered on the ground to deliver through the network of NCCP reserves in San Diego. We have to believe there's a more suitable solution or development design that could meet the department's land equivalency guidelines and be less impactful to millions of dollars that have been invested by public entities at the state and federal level to achieve important conservation outcomes. There are 4 key factors that we would put forward for your consideration with respect to this exchange. First, we do believe that it will, this exchange would significantly impact the ecological reserve and reserve designs adopted in the South County NCCP, where hard lines have been drawn to conserve ecologically valuable habitat and species to protect them from future harm, while also providing a framework for critical housing and development in the right locations. Second, this proposal does not equate to an ecological gain for nature. By our calculation, approximately 200 acres or more that are being put forward by the developer are already intended for conservation within the hardline preserve area, and almost 200 acres will also be counted as mitigation for the project. In sum, that means that lands that we believe can be counted toward the exchange would approximately be about 140 acres, resulting in a net loss of conserved lands for habitat. The third consideration we put for you is that permanent protection of these reserve lands is important. The MSCP is a path-breaking NCCP for California. The development of the San Diego National Wildlife Refuge and protection of these core habitat areas represent an approach to protect imperiled coastal sage scrub that are critical for multiple habitat values. Fourth, specifically, the swap could jeopardize important Kino checker spot butterfly habitat in this location. And the functioning Kino habitat is decreased by 75% and its overall numbers by 95% due to the conversion of coastal sage scrub. Finally, the Conservancy understands the department's position in this exchange, but we believe that the purpose would be advanced by a deeper dialogue, protecting the integrity of reserve design as paramount importance. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, moving on to Robert Hamilton.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good morning, honorable members of the Wildlife Conservation Board. My name is Rob Hamilton. I'm a wildlife biologist and president of Hamilton Biological Incorporated. Been working as a professional field biologist and policy analyst in Southern California for 32 years. And for the past 3 years, I've been reviewing this project on behalf of Endangered Habitats League. The developer and their consultants have worked very hard to convince you that the people of California should be willingly giving up hundreds of acres of dedicated preserve land in the heart of Proctor Valley in exchange for parcels near the town of Jamul that they have mapped as containing mainly coastal sage scrub. I can personally attest that the credibility of the plant community mapping you've been given is suspect. The state of California would not receive the resources that have been promised by the developer, and this alone should be a big deal for all of us. I took 3 days to field check the mapping of the exchange lands and photo documented dozens of acres of grassland that were mapped as coastal sage scrub. The developer's consultants have told you that these areas represent what they call potential habitat for the Kino checker spot, which is the species of highest conservation priority in Proctor Valley. But these areas are not suitable at all, and they can't be restored to that kind of habitat. They're grasslands. If the consultant's mapping of the 198 disputed acres were correct, they could have easily demonstrated this with site photos, just as I did, but they've not done so. Instead, they've engaged in empty ad hominem attacks on me. If the issue in your mind comes down to biologist versus biologist, I think this should tell you something. As Dan Silver mentioned, the Department of Fish and Wildlife has validated what I've been telling you regarding both the widespread mapping errors and the low value of the exchange lands for the Keno. But then the department has also argued that these facts can be safely ignored. They urge you to finalize the deal, even though the CEQA findings for the exchange project directly contradict the CEQA findings for the original project, which is the EIR you're supposed to be relying on for this, for your consideration. This makes no sense. The exchange project will destroy more than 500 acres of critical habitat for the Keno, which would include 219 acres that the state of California purchased at great cost, set aside as a permanent habitat preserve. The state would not receive lands of equal or greater value in return, and that would violate the Public Resource Code. I think it should be clear that a precedent-setting decision of this magnitude has to be made after careful consideration of the full set of reliable facts, analyses. It can't be based on what we've heard here, which is falsehoods, half-truths, contradictions, and conclusory findings that have been set in front of you. I think we all deserve better, and I thank you for your service to our great state. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Cohen. And Nicole Weinman will be next. Lisa?
Cohen?
Lisa Cohen, yes.
Hello, did you say Lisa Cohen?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Wildlife Conservation Board. My name is Lisa Cohen, and I'm the CEO of the Chula Vista Chamber of Commerce. I'm speaking in support of the Otay Ranch Land Exchange, which will essentially consolidate the Village 14 development footprint in a sustainable manner. The Chula Vista Chamber voted to endorse this project when it originally was approved in 2019. The proposed land exchange is a great idea all around because we need more sustainable housing options for our growing region. Chula Vista is the second largest city in San Diego County, and we have a population with diverse housing needs. The consolidated development that is a result of this land exchange helps preserve more open space in the region while providing critically needed homes. Therefore, I respectfully urge the Wildlife Conservation Board to support this land exchange, to support more open space and sustainable housing for our region. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Moving on to Matthias Tukanduva. I'm sorry, I'm probably just butchering your name, but Matthias Tukanduva. Rebecca Lieberman. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Lieberman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, which represents approximately 2,500 member businesses and an estimated 300,000 jobs in the San Diego region. The Chamber strongly supports the Otay Ranch Land Exchange. We are committed to ensuring that our region has enough housing for our workforce. We also recognize the importance of conservation and want sustainable options for working families. The Chamber supports the land exchange because it will consolidate the anticipated development in this region, which is in line with the San Diego County General Plan. The Chamber recently published a study about commuters in the region. It found that a staggering amount of our workforce, approximately 54,000 people, commute from Riverside County homes to San Diego County jobs every day. This creates significant regional traffic and environmental impacts. The land exchange will provide more open space preserve that expands the Humboldt Ecological Reserve, in addition to consolidating the housing we need today. Again, the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce supports the land exchange and the more sustainable and fire-safe community that comes with it. Thank you, and I urge you to support the land exchange.
Great, thank you. I just want to check in real quick before I call the next speaker. We do have several more speakers. I think we have 28 left for this particular item. And then we also have 6 additional agenda items that we need to get through. So, I just want to remind folks to make sure that you stay within your 3-minute time frame. And if you're able to reduce that some, I think folks on the line would be appreciative. So just a quick check-in. So I would like to call Matthias. Is he back? Is he on yet? No. Joe Monaco.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Hello, this is Matthias.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sharing statements from the letter of support submitted by Patrick Walker, 10th District Vice President for CAL FIRE Firefighters Local 2881, who could not join us because he is fighting the fires in Northern California today. Good morning. My name is Patrick Walker, and I'm the 10th District Vice President for CAL FIRE Firefighters Local 2881. I am calling in today because CAL FIRE Firefighters Local 2881 supports the Otay Ranch land exchange you will consider today. This land exchange will lead to a more consolidated development for Village 14 and Otay Ranch. This means that it will improve fire defensibility and increase safety measures for both Village 14 and the surrounding communities. The land exchange actually reduces wildland interface by 70%. We are proud to support the land exchange and the resulting consolidated development. For these reasons, we encourage you to support and approve the proposed land exchange today. Thank you so much for your time.
Great, thank you. All right, Brandon Dawson. Brandon Dawson. Mike McCoy.
Hello.
Hello. I can barely hear you.
I'm sorry.
Right. Please go.
Okay. Good afternoon, members. This is Brandon Dawson, policy advocate for Sierra Club California. Our organization consists of more than 500,000 members and supporters around the state, many of whom live in the region in which this project is located. And I'm here today to testify in opposition to the land exchange and request that you deny it. Flourishing natural areas and parks are indispensable to people's health, prosperity, and cultural traditions, as well as enjoyment. They also play a critical role in combating the climate and extinction crisis that our state is facing and all over the world. In 2003, this board purchased these lands to provide permanent protection of important biological, scenic, cultural, and historic resources and to maintain wildlife movement corridors between Proctor Valley and nearby public lands. These lands still serve this exact same important function, and this role, particularly for connectivity, is even more important with climate change. So to consummate this exchange would be to betray the Wildlife Conservation Board's mission. Sierra Club California strongly believes that this exchange would set a terrible precedent for the board and the future of lands that the CDFW holds in trust for all Californians. Never has the Wildlife Conservation Board exchanged land that has been under permanent protection, as Board Member Colburn mentioned earlier when she was questioning the department. So we strongly urge you to deny this request today, and we'd be happy to talk in more detail if necessary. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Moving on to Susan Baldwin.
Whoops.
There you go, you're on. If you muted yourself again.
Okay.
There.
Thank you. My name is Susan Baldwin, and I'm president of San Diegans for Managed Growth. And today, what I would like to do is to emphasize the broad opposition of the environmental community by reading the names of the groups who are in opposition to this land exchange. Some of them you've heard from today, but others maybe not because of the length of the hearing. And they include the Environmental Center of San Diego, California Wildlife Foundation, Center for Biological Diversity, Western Alliance for Nature, Friends of Harbors, Beaches and Parks, Defenders of Wildlife, Sierra Club California, the Urban Wildlands Group, Palos Verdes Peninsula South Bay Audubon Society, Institute for Ecological Health, Save Our Forest and Ranchlands, San Diego Coastkeeper, Preserve Wild Santee, California Chaparral Institute, Southwest Wetlands Interpretive Association, San Bernardino Valley Audubon Society, Pomona Valley Audubon Society, Buena Vista Audubon Society, Los Angeles Audubon Society, San Diegans for Managed Growth, who I am representing, Grow the San Diego Way, Sea and Sage Audubon Society, California Native Plant Society, San Diego Chapter, Cleveland National Forest Foundation, Endangered Habitats League, and the Natural Resources Defense Council. Thank you very much, and we would all like to work collaborative in the future with the county, the department, and applicant on better solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. So Joe Monaco.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm Joe Monaco, and I'm the president and CEO of DUDEC. I've been involved in the conservation planning efforts for Otay Ranch for nearly 30 years, practically my entire career. And DUDEC has been providing biological field work and analyses on lands comprising the Otay Ranch continuously since 1990. Our work has contributed substantially to the development of the Otay Ranch Resource Management Plan and the MSCP, specifically the subarea plans of the County of San Diego, City of San Diego, and City of Chula Vista. So I requested to speak for two reasons today. First, I want to be clear that I stand by the integrity of DUDEC's EIR and biological technical studies for the land exchange. Our team of biologists have had hundreds of documented hours on Village 14 alone, plus countless hours of biological studies and habitat mapping that have contributed to every phase of planning of Otay Ranch, including the program level EIR, the MSCP studies, and the county general plan, all of which were the building blocks of this project. Second, as an environmental professional who's been involved in numerous large-scale multi-species conservation efforts throughout Southern California, excuse me, I want to express my support for the land exchange because I believe it makes sense from a preserved design standpoint. It does exactly what the NCCP contemplates. It reduces habitat fragmentation over the approved plan. It maintains and enhances wildlife movement corridors and protects a mosaic of habitat types. And importantly, it concentrates development to reduce edge effects. So thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Next is Shelby Howard. Brian Jones. Shelby Jones.
This is Shelby. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. So this is Shelby Howard. I am a principal biologist and also vice president at Helix Environmental Planning, biological consultant to the GDCI team. I have a bachelor's in biology as well as a master's in biology from San Diego State University. Lived in San Diego for 20 years. I've been practicing biology in San Diego for 20 years and was responsible for overseeing the overall Kino checker spot butterfly surveys and all of the analysis that was completed for the project. And like Joe Monaco just said on behalf of DUDEC, I stand for the integrity and all of the work that the Helix team completed for the project. We take our work very seriously. We are professional consultants that stand by the integrity of our work, and you know, we take all of our work seriously and the analysis that went into it. So you will hear later from Barry Jones in terms of the specific items in terms of the Kino checker spot butterfly analysis. But one additional point that I wanted to make, there was a question early on about why wasn't there funding set aside for the intensive management, I think is what was the question for the reserve, so or for the exchange lands. And you know, when we went through our analysis, we did not feel that there was a need for any intensive management prior to the exchange. There was a Kino checker spot butterfly conservation strategy that was developed and has been sent to everybody on the board. And that outlines really the overall management for the preserve lands, including some of the areas that we had identified as potential Kino checker spot butterfly enhancement on the CDFW lands that they would receive. So thank you very much. And I am available for questions as well.
Great, thank you. We'll move to JT Theberge, JT.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go.
Thank you, honorable members of the board. So my name is JP Theberge, and I do represent Grow the San Diego Way. We're a think tank and advocacy for smart land use, housing, and growth in a sustainable and equitable way. For decision makers to make a variance from existing policy that will possibly harm the public via either wildfire risks, habitat loss, or depletion of biological resource, a strong case needs to be made that it'll provide a benefit that exceeds those harms. So one of the claims that's being made is by this developer and the supporters of this project is that it will provide quote unquote workforce housing or housing for moderate income housing. However, the applicant has not provided any substantiation that this is true. They haven't provided pricing or anything of that nature. The project will be 100% market rate, and there will be no, quote, official affordable housing for moderate, low, or very low income people, households in this project. We can estimate how much these houses will cost if we look at comparable prices in the area. Chula Vista, according to Zillow Real Estate Analytics, averages about $569,273 is what an average home, which includes multifamily, single family, older, and brand new homes. The brand new homes would come in quite a bit higher, probably about 100 to 150. At that price point, a household would need to earn $158,000 in order to qualify for this housing and not be rent burdened. This is what's known as 170% of the area median income. For reference, only 20% of households in the area can actually afford this housing. So that, and that's not including HOA fees and Mello-Roos, which would push up the income requirement to about 170. The housing crisis we're facing is not a lack of above moderate housing, which this project is going to be providing. It's a lack of moderate, low, and very low. Our last RENA cycle, we actually overproduced above moderate. 152% of our state mandated requirement. And currently, we are on track to exceed their above moderate needs, while we're only 13% of where we need to be in moderate, low, and very low. Chula Vista has even more lopsided production. The current RENA cycle, Chula Vista's produced 188% of their above moderate mandate, but only 16% of the low and very low. The County of San Diego's general plan recognizes the importance of encouraging more moderate, lower, and very low income housing, and in fact mentions affordability more than 50 times in the document. And one requirement, H1.9, requires affordable component in general plan amendments for large projects. However, no projects in the county in the past 5 years that have been proposed have actually fulfilled this requirement. And in fact, the courts have ruled against the county, invalidating a recent approval of a project for that very reason. Grow the San Diego Way, just to conclude, believes that there's going to be, if there's going to be radical diversion from established conservation policies that will hurt the public, there should at least be a verifiable and substantial benefit to the public. This project does not meet that standard. We oppose and we agree with the biological findings of NRDC and all the other environmental regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. James Pugh.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Jim Pugh. I'm the Conservation Chair of San Diego Audubon Society, and I was involved in a lot of the initial discussions as the MSCP was being put together. The idea of conservation planning on a landscape level versus a project by project level was really attractive. Unfortunately, what we're seeing here is the landscape level being chewed up on a project by project basis, which was something that we kind of feared but thought would never happen. So we hope that it really doesn't. The department has carried out its obligations under the dispute resolution agreement already. So the Wildlife Conservation Board has complete freedom to make his decision based on the ground reality. We hope that they'll make that decision based on true data and not the inaccurate data that they've been provided so far. We're really concerned about the impact on the Kino checker spot butterfly, and I think it's just unconscionable that we'd be willing to take this much of a setback in the MSCP for this really important species. We really ask that you follow the logic of the MSCP and deny this exchange and give the Kinos a better chance to survive. We'd be happy to work with anyone on trying to come up with a much better solution for this problem. Thank you for taking our testimony.
Great, thank you. Damian Nagami. Travis Longcore.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the board. I'm Travis Longcore, representing Los Angeles Audubon Society and the Urban Wildlands Group, both in Los Angeles. I was one of the authors of the recovery plan for Keno Checker Spot and wrote the captive propagation and release plan for Keno Checker Spot for the Fish and Wildlife Service. I have experience directly on conservation of at least half of the endangered butterflies in California. I'm a certified senior ecologist by the Ecological Society of America. Representing these groups, I request that you oppose the land exchange and deny it today. As science-based organizations, we have extraordinary level of concern with this decision being based on inappropriate mapping. As Rob explained, there's photo documentation of 198 acres that was mismapped as intact coastal sage scrub when it was not. So this is not a net benefit to Keno Checker Spot. And you got Section 6 funds for this property because the Keno was there. That's the primary issue here in Proctor Valley, and it's been on our radar in Keno conservation for a very long time. I know from firsthand experience how vital it is that occupied habitat for critical endangered species be preserved rather than destroyed. You cannot throw out your occupied habitat. It's like a seed crop. And Keno experts have concluded the exchange lands could not be restored to support Keno populations, and there are no funded plans or even plans to try that I know of. You can safely discount the concerns about the compactness and edge effects on this situation. This is a Keno issue. You've got plenty of land there. If you protect the land that you have that is for Keno, you can manage that land safely. And if you don't, you give up the value that you bought it for, and you don't get it back in the exchange. Keno is the important species here, and you are worse off, even with the other design that's being proposed, if you let that high quality habitat go. This appears to have been rushed through at the applicant's insistence, and the department admits in the land conversion evaluation it had no time for proper surveys. It's here, it's before you. When the testimony is done, you should call the question and vote on it, and you should deny it. This is just not a scientifically acceptable proposal from the butterfly conservation perspective. I know that Keno is not listed as a state species, but the state is taking extra interest. I'm wrapping extra interest in insects at this time, and it is the reason that this value was funded and that you got funding to acquire it, and then you should not trade it away. You should deny this proposal.
Great, thank you. Damian Nagami. Claire Schlotterback. William White.
Hey.
Hi.
Nice to see you again. You always have the best background.
Barry, you need to. I
like yours, Kiana. That's cool.
Barry, you need to mute your phone. Thank you. So Claire Schlotterback?
Yes.
Okay, please go.
Hello, I'm representing Friends of Harbors, Beaches, and Parks of Orange County and Hills for Everyone. As someone who has worked with your board for decades to protect land, I ask that you not set a precedent for trading away our public lands to allow a development to occur on the very lands we all had purchased for the, quote, permanent protection, close quote. Political expediency and strong-arm tactics are not what are not how WCB should steward California's vital public lands. If this precedent is set, what other state lands will be proposed for conversion or exchange on the basis of a contrived rationale? Why would this ever stop? Furthermore, we have an NCCP signatory that stonewalled the department again when it said there were MSCP violations. I repeat, this precedent should not be set for others to follow. There will be no turning back. Preserves and parks are not holding places until something else comes along. Precedents should move us forward, not set us back. We urge you to reject this today so we can work out a real solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Mark Wardlaw.
Hi, this is Mark Slovic with the County of San Diego. Mark Wardlaw had to step away for a minute. We're here if the Wildlife Conservation Board members have any questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry Jones. So, William White.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Director, yes.
Hi, good afternoon, board members, Director Donnelly. I'm Bill White. I'm an attorney with Schutten, Hawley, and Weinberger, and I'm here on behalf of Endangered Habitats League. I'm also going to forego my prepared remarks because I want to respond to some issues that were raised initially by board member Colburn regarding the PV1 and PV3 areas. I think if Member Colburn, you were confused by the response that you got from staff. You're not alone, and I think it's important that we take a step back and look at this issue more carefully. The LCE, which is the basis for this exchange, was premised entirely on the assumption that development of PV 1, 2, and 3 will happen absent the exchange. The LCE is clear that the exchange doesn't work without that assumption. It gives 100% value to the preservation of those properties, and it assumes that the exchange is the only way to save them from development. But today, you're hearing something very different from staff. You heard today from Mr. Vogeley that they assume without the exchange that development will occur, except on PV 1, 2, and 3. And you got a letter from the department yesterday that said the same thing. Now, Mr. Vogeley did say that there was some ambiguity in whether development would be permitted and suggested that this was the reason they entered into the dispute resolution agreement. But we don't think there is any ambiguity. It's clear that the MSCP is hardline preserved. But in any case, Mr. Vogeley said that there was agreement on all sides that these lands were designated no-take authorized. That means the development cannot occur in those areas without an amendment to the MSCP to bring them into a take authorized situation. And that is completely within the control of the department. In addition, something that hasn't been mentioned, but the entire development project that was originally approved depended on the improvement of Proctor Valley Road, which runs right straight through the middle of department reserved property, and require that the applicant get the department to grant it property for the expansion of that road and the relocation of that road. That is something that is 100% in the control of the department. In other words, without the department's consent and acquiescence to this development, the development does not go forward, which means that the entire basis of the exchange collapses. There is no way the exchange can meet the requirements for exchanges under the Public Resources Code. And so we ask that the board not delay this decision. There is nothing further to consider here. There is nothing that any new studies or biological surveys or anything else is going to change, because the exchange cannot work. So we ask that the preservation of existing preserved lands should never be used as a basis for trading away state ecological preserved property. And we ask that you send that message today. The sooner the better. Put an end to the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Balmer. George Corser.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Greg Balmer, and I'm going to speak on behalf of myself and also Mr. Ken Osborne, we submitted detailed explanation of why we opposed the land exchange. And I won't go into those details here. The members of the board will probably have that letter available to them. But we both come to this as biologists with long years of experience with the Keno checker spot, which we think is really the only primary biological resource which is at stake here. Now, it's been stated that the state would reap many acres of additional land in this exchange, plus $20 million of additional value. Well, that's of course a red herring, because you can't reap any value unless the land is sold, which would be prohibited under the guidelines. It would have to be preserved in perpetuity. But we would like to emphasize that the land which is proposed for exchange by the state is high quality Keno checker spot habitat, and there are documentation that it has been occupied for many years and the resources for reproduction are all there. And it's even better, it's in an ideal location toward the center of the valley to serve as a major source population. You must realize that this butterfly has a metapopulation structure, which means that there are many subpopulations scattered about the countryside, which are either on or off in terms of adult activity, depending upon the particular rainfall patterns each year. So in a drought, there may be no butterflies observable at all. They remain dormant in the larval stage, waiting for the next rain period. So they're normally flying in the late winter and spring. The dudek and the other biologists who surveyed for the proponents of the project did not survey in good years of rainfall. They refused to do so, instead preferring to do their butterfly surveys in drought years when very few insects could be found. So even though they may have gone by the letter of the law in doing their surveys, they picked the wrong years to do it. I would say in this regard, one should wonder, first of all, why would the project proponents want to give away more land, and why would they want to give away $20 million of value? I suggest that you should follow the money, as they always do in political scandals. There's a reason for that, and I think we got some inkling of it. We had testimony just recently.
Please start finishing up.
The houses to be built would be very high end and would not satisfy the needs for low.
Please. Let's move on. The next speaker will be Pamela Hetherington.
So I went over 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Pamela?
I'm here. Thank you very much. I just wanted to give everybody a shot of what we're trying to preserve. I am Pam Hetherington from the Environmental Center of San Diego, and I'm on the verge of believing our preserves and reserves are just that, preserved lands. We strongly encourage you to reject the proposed exchange of reserved land in Proctor Valley. In the dispute resolution agreement, the department signed away its right to judge the facts objectively in its required LCE. Even when it was faced with the information on mismapping, it could not change its position. This is just not right and should not be acceptable to your board. This is not how I believe California's government should operate. As to the exchange itself, we know that new development should generally be sited adjacent to existing development. The land exchange does the opposite. It puts all development in the middle of Proctor Valley, which blocks connectivity between the Jamul Mountains and Mount San Miguel. Please don't go down this path at the expense of lands having the greatest biological value. Oppose and deny today. And remember why you're doing some of this. Thank you.
Great, thanks for your comments. Jo Marie Diamond.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go.
Yep. Great. Okay, great. Hold on for a second. The first time you couldn't hear me. Good morning, Chairman Bonham and Board. My name is Jo Marie Diamond, and I serve as the President and CEO of the East County Economic Development Council. I'm calling in to voice my support for the Otay Ranch Land Exchange, which will greatly help the communities in San Diego County in a positive way. This land exchange is a result of hard work and extensive collaboration between local, state, and federal agencies and community organizations. The trust that has been built between these different parties is commendable and should lead and will lead to effective housing and land use. We are excited that this land exchange preserves open spaces and expands the Hamul Ecological Reserve, which neighbors our very own East County. In addition, this land exchange is entirely consistent with the county general plan, and the region's need for housing has not diminished. This is the type of teamwork we need to help create more housing more responsibly. And I work with a lot of developers, and I can tell you that I've not seen this level of collaboration in my career, and I would like to commend the groups for all working together. So I'm speaking in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Weinman. Linda Minish, Linda. Sasan Ramazadeh. Amy Spear. Mary Shapiro.
Yes.
Yes, please go.
Hi there, this is Mary Chaparro, and I am in support of the Rancho Hamul Land Exchange. I am a 35-year realtor in San Diego County, and I will say some of the comments I've heard about the housing development. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. I will have to differ, of course, in opinion on those. We do have a housing shortage. This is a wonderful collaborative development. And today I notice that we're hearing the same arguments from the environmental community that have failed at every step of this process. We see it day in and day out, and this project is truly a win-win for neighbors in South County and the environment. And we need smart projects and developments like this that also help preserve our habitat. As a native San Diegan, protecting habitat is certainly important, but I find it amazing to look at, we can't talk about housing our children and our species as humans when we talk about some of these other endangered species. So I really want to plead to the board, and certainly I respect the position that you're in, but you have the advice of your staff who has been studying these issues for quite some time, and there has been a tremendous amount of extensive collaboration that has come together. I've been involved and listened in throughout many counties, and in San Diego County specifically, this is one of the most collaborative efforts for responsible and smart development. And I please beg of you to support this and approve this land exchange today. It is a great thing for our community, and it's a great thing for San Diego County. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Preston Brown. Damon
Okay,
Nagami?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, honorable members of the board. My name is Preston Brown. I'm a member of the Hamul Desura Community Planning Group, and today I'm speaking as an individual. I've lived in Hamul for 20 years and have been a member of the planning group for 14 years. I am opposed to the land exchange. First off, I would just say that listening to the treatment, consideration, breadth of knowledge, the number of projects that are happening in California right now. I salute you. Way to go. I'm proud to be a Californian. Back in 1997, 15 villages to the west of us in Chula Vista were approved for residential development if they complied with a specific hardline conservation preserve, now known as the Baldwin Agreement. This is a legacy, the grand bargain, as Supervisor Cox refers to it. And I want to comment to Supervisor Cox. I'm surprised that he accused us of being disingenuous when I think he is actually being very disingenuous when we look at this. Out of the 15 villages that were approved, 14 of them are in Supervisor Cox district. Each one of them complied exactly with the MSPC. The only one that's not complying is Village 14, not in his district. Very suspicious. And not one, numerous considerations for exceptions in a series of anomalous steps and where there has been more than double the size from what was originally allowed. Chairman Bonham's statement was a little bit misleading in saying that the project size had shrunk. Was he just talking about land, or was he talking about number of dwellings? The number of dwellings has more than doubled. Also, Chair Bonham gave a false choice, as I think so did Nathan, that if you don't approve this project, that it will go back and it will happen. It will go back to the status quo. The status quo is not breaking ground. The status quo is going back to lawsuits. And the Cox-Wardlaw era of housing failure is a graveyard of projects that have been buried in the courts. This is no longer a grand bargain. It is a story of grand betrayal of all the other villages who followed the rules, who honored the terms of the conservation agreement. It is a betrayal of the hundreds of conservation projects that have sprung up over 2 decades that depended on, that relied upon the assurances of this agreement. This process has delved, this process that has delivered to you today, this project has been corrupted. It has descended into chicanery. The whole deal you see before you today morphed from a single clear-cut agreement, a promise to the public, to a long battle of negotiations for land maps. Village 14 reaches further into the eastern backcountry than any of the others, which is clustered in the plateau of the canyon lands of the coastal area. Proctor Valley, the host of Village 14, lies on a northeast-southwest axis, perfect for Santa Ana-driven fires. It is the most vulnerable area in California. The road report commissioned by the San Diego
Okay, please finish up your comments.
Said there's great risk of fire entrapment and emergency evacuation for Village 14 residents and for the surrounding communities of Amul, which is the center for evacuation routes in the backcountry, with the realities of complex fire events.
Okay, sir, you need to finish up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please deny this project.
Okay, Jerry Ann Stalka. Peter Anderson.
Peter Anderson here. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go.
First of all, I want to thank the Wildlife Conservation Board for hearing our testimony. Is there an echo in there?
Yes, there is.
I don't know how to solve that.
There, that's better.
Okay, thanks. First of all, I want to thank the board for meeting today and hearing our testimony. I'm Dr. Peter Anderson, and I thank the state of California for even having a Wildlife Conservation Board. You know, most states are not environmentally conscious enough to have this. I'm currently an officer of Sierra Club San Diego, and interestingly, I was on the executive committee of Sierra Club San Diego in the 1990s, and I'm part of the team that helped bargain for the MSCP. So let me correct a couple of things that have been said today. The MSCP was this grand bargain. You can develop these lands. These lands are preserved in perpetuity. Now, I may misunderstand the word perpetuity, but you look it up in the dictionary, it means forever. Now, imagine if this were the reverse. Imagine if a developer built a development and we said, oh, those houses sit on some habitat that could be converted into prime habitat land for Kino butterflies and least Bell's vireo. Would you expect them to tear down their houses and give that land back to the state of California? I don't think so. The grand bargain that we negotiated back in the 90s was these lands are sacrosanct. These are hardline preserves. Now, we've heard a lot about, I'm also, by the way, a resident. From my patio, I can see Port of Palace.
Getting a lot of echo.
Sorry, I've run out there and I've bicycled out there. I know Proctor Valley very well from a standpoint. If you look at the entire PIR, this project is in the most fire-prone area. It's not affordable housing. The proponents keep bringing this stuff up. It's going to cause massive evacuation problems. This is a community with in the highest 2% for evacuation fire risk, according to the state of California. Often the project one versus the revised project are compared. That's a false comparison. That's terrible. There's less. So this is a bogus argument, and I hope that you reject that argument. This is a project that we've been fighting for 30 years in a sensitive fire-prone area. These lands are preserved. They're owned by the people of California. This sets a terrible precedent by the Wildlife Council. Please reject this land swap.
All right, thank you for your comments. Jerry Ann Stalka.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go.
My name is Jerry Stalkup. I'm a conservation biologist who has spent 30 years working on the MSCP and other NCCP programs. I was the project manager, principal biologist, and primary author of the MSCP framework plan. Since then, I have been involved in implementation, management, and monitoring of the MSCP. The San Diego Management and Monitoring Program continues to refine the MSCP guidelines through new information gained from research, management, and monitoring, as was always intended. The proposed land exchange results in a loss of important foraging habitat for golden eagle, a covered species which is declining in the MSCP area to the point of extirpation from the area. I have the following comments. The consultants have not made their field survey data available for review, but it appears that they're still relying on old regional mapping of vegetation and habitat quality with no new properly conducted surveys or updated information from the San Diego Management and Monitoring Program. The consultants are using the vegetation tiers for the wrong purpose. They were intended as generalized tools for determining mitigation ratios. The consultants, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the County of San Diego have all ignored the best available scientific information as required by the MSCP. The San Diego Management and Monitoring Program has developed a management strategic plan and website that includes the latest research specifically regarding the golden eagle, the Keno checker spot, and wildlife corridors. These were not referenced. Most importantly, in 30 years, the Proctor Valley development bubble in the MSCP framework plan and the county's sub-area plan has not been refined based on this new information, as was intended, including consideration of tens of thousands of acres that make the county, the South County, the largest NCCP core area in Southern California. This is not smart development. The land exchange will have cascading consequences on stakeholder trust and future land acquisitions, especially involving the Department of Fish and Wildlife and WCB. Please reject this proposal today, and let's work out a real solution for this development with the county, department, and Fish and Wildlife Service. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you for your comments. Okay, Mark Dillon. Okay, Becky Cortez.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Natalie Kessler, and I'd like to speak on behalf of Becky Cortez, who cannot make it this afternoon. I'm calling in support of the Rancho Hamul Land Exchange, and I would just like to list a number of all of the supporters who are supportive of this project. So Congressman Scott Peters, the County of San Diego departments and staff, the majority of the County Board of Supervisors who approved this land exchange earlier this year in a 4-to-1 vote, the City of Chula Vista and its decision makers, the multiple chambers across the region who recognize the need for housing in response to the housing availability and affordability crisis, including some that you've heard today, the Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Chula Vista Chamber of Commerce, Cal Firefighters Local 2881, who support this project because it reduces the edge effect between the open space and housing, the Deputy Sheriff Association of San Diego County, the Wildlife Conservation Board staff and its council, the CDFW staff, council, and its director, as well as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service staff, council, and senior personnel. There are also numerous residents surrounding this community who would like to live, work, and be part of the Otay Ranch community. Biologists from Helix, Dudek, and independent appraisers all support this land exchange, so I would just like to share these comments today to support this Rancho Hamul land exchange. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Nicole Weinman. Amy Spear. Sasan Rahimazadeh. Trish Schuler.
Hello, this is Joe Monaco. Unfortunately, Tish had to leave the meeting, but I just wanted to note that she is the county's approved and registered biologist on the project, part of the team that spent over 100 field days collecting biological data. And I think the main point she wanted to note is that she also spent 3 days in the field with CDFW biologist Dave Mayer, reviewing the applicant owned exchange parcels with the CDFW parcels. And Barry Jones, who I believe is on the speaker list as well, he was in attendance for a portion of those site visits as well. So just wanted to make a note of that.
Right. Thank you. So Barry Jones. Barry Jones.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Director Connolly and board members. My name is Barry Jones. I'm a consulting biologist. I've been working in the Southern California area for close to 40 years. I spent most of my career on projects like this, as well as large-scale resource planning. I was actually the principal biologist on the first multi-species habitat conservation plan in the country. So I fully support the MSCP and the implementation of it. I'm with Helix Environmental Planning. We're the county certified biologists that worked on the project and provided Keno biological assessments to the county and to DUDEC during the project CEQA process. Helix has extensive experience with multiple Keno biologists doing surveys in San Diego and Riverside County. And Helix is permitted by the service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, to conduct these Keno-related surveys. We spent 2 years surveying for Keno following the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Keno protocol. And I want to make it very clear that we surveyed both GDCI parcels and the CDFW parcels equally. So any reference to inconsistent surveys for Keno between those two areas is not correct. We spent a combined over 1,000 hours on site with, again, multiple biologists documenting Keno resources and then submitting those findings to the service. We based our assessment on the actual field data, where the Keno resources were located. We also worked very closely in close coordination with the department, with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the county, and the redesign of the project to coordinate development, reduce edge effects, and improve reserve design, which is really what is the primary driver. We worked collaboratively with the department, the service, and the county in developing the Keno strategy, framework plan, restoration plan, and the management plan. We concur with CDFW's LC conclusion, including in their letter dated August 25th, 2020, that the land exchange overall is biologically superior, not just for Keno, but for a host of other sensitive special status species as well. We stand by our field work and conclusion that the land exchange benefits QCD based on reserve design. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. And there is just a handful of names that are still on the list that I have called, but they have not answered. So, is there anybody else that sent in a speaker card that wants to talk that I have not called? Yes.
Hello. Yes. This is Mike McCoy.
Yes. Yes. Go, Mr. McCoy.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate being able to address the honorable members of the board. I'm president of the Southwest Wetlands Interpretive Association. We've set up 2 national wildlife refuges in San Diego County, South Bay and Tijuana. And we do a lot of wetland restoration in Southern California. We are opposed to the land exchange and we request denial. I want to say, why is the decision you make so important? San Diego County is a biodiversity hotspot. Hotspots are among the richest and most important ecosystems on the earth. San Diego has more biodiversity than any other county in the United States, and along with the rest of California is among the top 10 biodiversity regions on the earth. Any activity, past, present, or future, that impacts or fragments habitat leads to cumulative environmental effects or impacts that can have ramifying antagonistic effects on natural processes locally and globally. Over time, cumulative impact leads to ecological collapse, removing vital ecosystem services. The primary responsibilities of the Wildlife Conservation Board are to select and authorize and allocate funds for the purchase of land and water suitable for the preservation, protection, and restoration of wildlife habitat. Proctor Valley is emblematic of this responsibility. The Wildlife Conservation Board has never abandoned superb, high quality, and vital public lands purchased for permanent protection of critical habitat for endangered species and landscape connectivity, maintaining wildlife movement corridors between Proctor Valley and nearby public lands, and making a huge development possible. I want to emphasize that, making a huge development possible. Connectivity is even more important with climate change. Restoration is not a viable option in this case. This decision could set a precedent by allowing the violation of department guidelines. Do not allow short-term profit to destroy long-term ecological integrity. Follow your primary responsibilities. It would be a violation of the public trust if you veer off those primary responsibilities. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to make this comment.
Thank you. All right.
Mark,
pardon?
This is Mark Dillon.
Amy
Yes.
Spear is here too.
Mark Dillon?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please go.
Hi, my name is Mark Dillon. I too am counsel for GDCI, the land exchange applicant. I have a few comments about process. There have been lots of good questions, lots of testimony for and against. However, the process before you entails review, analysis, and it involves the expertise of your staff and its counsel. That process includes review and expert analysis from the Department of Fish and Wildlife staff, its biologists, its council, and its director all recommend approval of this land exchange. In addition, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service staff and council and senior personnel support this land exchange. While, of course, you should exercise your independent review, you should also not discount your own staff and their expertise and sister agency time, effort, and expertise. Finally, I'll close by asking that you take another look at the graphic comparison between the current land plan approved by the county in 2019 and the proposed land exchange. This Wildlife Conservation Board graphic is the best rebuttal to project opponents. That comparison, that graphic, that picture proves the land exchange is a far superior design in all respects. In closing, there is no bad precedent. There is no violation of any kind here. And there certainly is no lack of adherence to your guidance. The best course is for you to exercise your independent judgment, but to also track and adhere to the analysis, advice, and expertise you've been provided with by your staff, the experts on your staff, the biologists, etc. We're hoping that you will support this project for all the reasons stated. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to make any public comment at this time?
This is George Corser.
Oh, okay.
I believe you skipped me after Pam Hetherington.
George Corser, yeah, please go.
Thank you. I have to start off with saying that my congratulations to this very astute board members who made the determination that an independent appraisal was not performed. This completely blows up any credibility that this has been brought to the table. You cannot in California not have an appraisal that is independent. By God, I get those when I get my car worked on. This is the basis of what we do. And there's millions of dollars at stake here. So the assumptions that there was no monetary discount for trying to develop lands where there was no take was authorized, these do not account for the benefit of gaining land adjacent to other developments and its infrastructure. And they do not account for giving up the less developable land to which the developer would have to extend very expensive sewer systems. So an independent appraisal is, without having that, it destroys almost every credence that you have here. The land exchange would create a private financial windfall by trading away really highly valuable state property acquired with tens of millions of taxpayer funds. And these would go to a private developer, allowing for a more profitable, greater intensity development at the expense of lands having the greatest biological value. So your urge to reject this project and preserve San Diego County's Otay Mesa in the protected state that is already exists. And thank you very much.
Great, thank you for your comments. I believe there was one more person trying to get on.
Yeah, this is Amy Spear. I'm actually, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm a resident near the project in East County. I'm calling in today to support the Rancho Jamul land exchange. I know that this land exchange is a result of a lot of collaboration between local, state, and federal officials. Myself and many, many others also voiced support for the land exchange when approved by the San Diego County Planning Commission and the County Board of Supervisors. No. The result is a community that has a reduced development footprint, which leads to more open space preserved. This land exchange should come to fruition today. For these reasons, I do ask that you support this land exchange, and I thank you.
Great, thank you. Right, anyone else wishing to make a public comment? Celeste, are there any hands raised that I cannot see or hear?
No, I was just going to give you George, but he piped on.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I think we're done with public comments. I would like to turn it back over to Alina and see what her desires are right now. I just want to do a time check. It is 3:12. We do have 5 additional projects to get through, plus the closed session item. We have lost board member Sklar, and I believe we may be losing, have not lost already, board member Gail Miller with the Department of Finance. But we do continue to have a quorum, even with Chuck not voting. So, Alina, how would you like to go forward?
What? Oh.
Or do you have any comments, I guess? I guess we can come back for board member comments now and just kind of listen to what you guys have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I want to just say thank you to all of the speakers who stayed on for the meeting to give us your comments on this item before the board today. So just, you know, thank you. I know it's been a long day. So when you were listing the board members, I'm glad to hear we still have quorum, but I want to, I guess, just open it up to the board to see if there are any additional questions of the staff or any of the speakers. I know a number of the speakers said they were here to, answer any additional questions. And then after that, I'd like to maybe just gauge the pleasure of the board if on a motion or proposal. So with that, are there any questions from any board members, of staff, or of any of the speakers?
I have no questions at this time.
Thank you, Fran.
This is Diane. I just, I don't have any more questions right now, but I would be prepared to take the vote today, but I'm concerned that Eric left kind of, I think, with the assumption that we were going to put this over, defer it to a future meeting. So I wouldn't want to go forward with a vote unless we were able to contact him and, see how he felt about that. So, I don't know where everybody else is, but
yeah.
And I just want to also thank everyone who stayed to give comments, because I know it's been a long day. It's kind of information overload for everybody. And so I really appreciate everybody's participation and keeping your comments brief, so everybody had a chance to speak.
Yeah, and this is Mary. I agree. Just thank everybody for the investment and the time in this process that I know has been going on for years. And I made comments at the beginning of this about deferring. I have some nervousness about deferring just because I'm always just so thoughtful of what it takes for community members and stakeholders to show up and wait for hours to say a couple words for a couple minutes, and get a little nervous about asking folks to do that all over again in a month or so. I'm a little torn on whether, based on what Diane also shared about whether Eric thought we were deferring or not. I think we kind of have to be thoughtful of if there is additional information that would sway us at this point, or if we feel like we have enough information. And if we do, I think we gotta probably make a decision, given, just the amount of investment that has gone into folks showing up today. So Alina, I'll defer to what you think is best here. I just, do worry about making folks go through this process again, but I think I think the challenge for me is my continuing question is not one that is answered after hearing 2 hours of comment, and it's just the differences in data around the conservation land values for these parcels, and that still is a concern for me on, okay, so what is the conservation value for this area, and why do we have such differing why do we have such differing understandings of what that is? And that continues to be a concern, but I'm not sure how we navigate that. If we, the department and the landowners feel like this, a lot of other conservation experts feels like it's something else. I'm struggling with that piece because I think that's pretty key to this decision.
I think just as a point of information, I think someone's sharing the screen. So I know it's maybe popping up your email. So just if you want to unshare, you don't want to share with the whole group. I think that, I from just speaking for me personally, I am with Diane that I am ready to take a vote on this matter, but at the same time, I am willing and would respect the need to, delay or recommend a delay on the vote, which is, I think, where the general sentiment was at the beginning of this item from the board. So I don't know, obviously what protocol will dictate here, if we can do some kind of a straw vote on whether or not to delay the this vote for a further date. It sounds like generally there would be an agreement to try to do something early in October and maybe do a special meeting, but I hope I wasn't reading the board's discussion wrong on that front. So I don't think, we'd have to wait until November's board meeting. So I also can appreciate, I think we could, in terms of Eric, since he did have to leave, I guess we could assume that he, might be on the straw vote of delaying the meeting. Excuse me. Yes,
And,
sorry.
And I'm watching the show, and it's actually.
Yes.
So sorry.
Okay.
So, what's the pleasure of the board? Should we do a kind of a straw vote, or does a board member want to bring forward a motion?
So, Alina, if I may, I think the best course of action procedurally is somebody just needs to make a motion to defer, and if it gets seconded and approved, then we defer. Otherwise, then I think that you move to vote on the project.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying kind of procedure approach.
Could I just ask quickly, John, do you know if we can, or Chuck, do either you know if we can get hold of Eric and see what his thoughts are?
I can try. Okay. But we've also lost Gail Miller as well.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah. Okay.
Gail's here. Sorry. Did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to make sure you were still on. I thought I saw a note that you may have to leave at 3, but I'm glad you're
do. I have to, I pushed it back 10 minutes. Do you think I could?
Okay. I
need some counsel.
Yeah, I think the board's getting close to deciding on how to advance this. And I think I can send Eric a note. But I don't know. I think we have a quorum without Eric to move, either postpone, or we have a quorum to vote on this project right now. Either to defer it or to move the project or to, so, it's really up to you as board members. I did hear, from my perspective, I did hear early on, and, I think I heard after the fact that it would probably be good to defer this to allow you as members absorb, understand, and, think about all of the information that has been provided to you in the last 2 days, all the way up until, midnight of last night, as well as this morning. I certainly understand your position, and, and I'm glad none of you are taking this decision lightly. I think it's heartening to me to see you taking this so seriously. And to the degree that we can provide a little more time for you to make an informed decision based on all of the information that you received, recognizing that staff will do everything it can to bring a meeting back the end of September, beginning of October, for you guys to make an informed decision based on the information that you received. Be happy to do that. So that's kind of my thoughts.
John, I have one thought. I believe we have 5 or 6 more projects and the closed session still to do.
Yes.
I know Eric said he had another meeting. You could defer on this for right now, start hearing the other projects and see if Eric can call back in. Notwithstanding, it also sounds though that we will lose Gail, unfortunately, in that time frame. So we're just kind of in a tough spot that people are dropping off at this point.
Yeah, and this is Mary. I do have to go at 4. I've moved a bunch of things, but I actually can't move this 4 o'clock. So just a flag that you have me for about another 37 minutes.
Okay.
I think since this is Alina. Oh, Fran, I see your hand up.
No, I think given that sort of the idea of moving forward quickly as possible on those other 4 items, and then take a vote to either continue it as we implied that we would, that's my challenge, and to a single day after the USCW report comes out and staff has had a chance to actually review it, and put it on a single meeting. And if we can't continue it, then a next motion would be an up or down vote on the project.
Yeah.
But we're going to run out of time, so I would like to just defer to whatever direction you want to go as quickly as possible before we lose a quorum. And they worry about the 4 projects.
All right, what about this? We'll defer a vote on this item or action on this item. I'll try to get a hold of Eric to come back on the line. We can start remaining 5 projects and have those presented, and then come back after the last one for a vote on this.
Well, I think my only concern with that strategy is we might lose, sounds like we're going to lose Gail and we're going to lose Mary. So either way, I'm not sure we can get back to our full board membership.
Mr. Chair, I mean, if I may, if we're deferring this project, I'm happy to make a motion on the others. I don't know if that's appropriate. If you'd like to present all 4 of them, I'm happy to move those 4. And then you could have, and then if you're willing to open the roll for a vote and then leave it open for discussion, I don't know if you would be comfortable doing that.
With the intent to see if Eric would be able to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to, I defer to you, Mr. Chair. I can probably call back in just so for the establishment of a quorum, so you still have me on the phone. I have to go off my computer though at 3:30.
Okay.
I had a question too, John. If to defer this project, do we need a motion?
We would defer, we would need a motion if we were going to defer it to a future date.
So I move to defer the Rancho Jamul land exchange.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, John, can you?
Yes, that was Fran for the second.
Yeah, and that's subject to the discussion post a single date and after the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service report is done and you've had a chance to review it. So it's not like the next day.
Okay, great. So I'll do a roll call vote. So Alina?
John, could I just say that I'm happy to sort of take the will of the board in deferring it, but kind of without prejudice either, on my part at least.
Okay.
So, Fran, just or John, are we looking at deferring potentially, in order to give staff time to review the report. Are we looking at the end of September, beginning of October? What's the?
Yeah, September.
How?
Well,
Yeah.
whenever it gets in, and they're going to need a couple of weeks to review it,
Sure.
and we have a summary so we can read it not at midnight before it's
Right.
heard.
Right.
And so I'm assuming it's going to be sometime in early October, but the idea would be in October sometime before, obviously, the November hearing as a sole item only.
Yeah, and we'll make every effort to have it before the first week in October. So sometime late September, early October, pending board member schedules, and then also our notice for a meeting schedule. So, and that is a 10-day notice requirement. So we will get that out and then we can plan from there. All right, so should we call the motion? Oh.
Yes, we have a second.
So we do have a motion to defer this till the end of September, early October, bring it back for discussion and board action on that future date. So Alina Bokde?
Aye.
So Chuck is recusing himself. Diane Colborn?
I'm abstaining.
Mary Kreisman?
Aye.
Gail Miller?
Aye.
Fran Pavley?
Aye.
And Eric isn't here. So we have 4 votes, 2 abstentions, and 1 no vote. So the motion does pass of deferral, bringing the project back in late September, early October.
Okay, thank you again to the board and obviously to all of our speakers who stayed and shared your comments. So it was very much appreciated by the board. So thank you. So John, I'll hand it back to you to take us through the remaining items.
Great, going forward in the agenda on we're on item number 28.
So, John,
yes.
If I leave, do you lose your quorum? I'm trying to figure out how to help you.
We do not.
No.
You do not.
We do not.
You do not. Oh, good. Okay, so I am
not.
so sorry to have to hop off then. I will email Mary my personal cell phone number, and if you need me to come back on because of loss of a quorum, if you give me like 5 to 10 minutes to do that, I'm happy to come back on so that you can conclude the business.
Okay,
Does
thank you, Gail.
Does that work for you? I sincerely apologize for this.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And an amazing job to Chuck and the whole team. That was pretty incredible work that everyone did.
Thank you.
Hey, John, we're shifting agenda items. I want to say thanks to Alina for taking over the gavel. Each of the board members for thinking so carefully about the item. And, not to joke around too much, but last week I sat through like 6 hours around whether Joshua Tree should be protected or not. And I know today in these 2 hours, a lot of people with really important perspectives came to the table, and I just say thank you because that's how the process is supposed to work, regardless of the view. So.
Great, thank you, Chuck. And I do also want to say thank you to all the who provided public comment for that item. It helps me, it helps my staff. I know it helps the board members, so thank you very much. So moving on to item number 28. This is a project for a grant to River Partners, and I just want to reiterate to staff, I know we talked about being quick, but I just want to impress upon them to please watch the time and do a brief presentation. So with that, I'll introduce Kurt Weber, and Kurt will provide the Rancho Coleta project, item number 28.
Thanks, John. This project is for a grant to River Partners for the Rancho Coleta parcel in Colusa County. Located south and east of Colusa on the east side of the Sacramento River near Butte Slough Road, the area is heavy in agricultural use. The property is located within the Sacramento River watershed and in a wildlife corridor that includes federal, state, and privately owned lands. To the north of the property is River Partners' 162-acre Willow Bend Preserve. The department's Calusa Bypass and Sacramento River Wildlife Area are located north of the property as well. Also upstream is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge. The property is in the Sacramento River Conservation Area Forum District, and SRCAF promotes and coordinates restoration activities along the Sacramento River. Property is generally flat, sloping up and away from the water. The western 8 acres adjacent to the Sacramento River includes a riparian corridor composed of native shrubs and grasses. Walnuts on the balance of the property are still productive but nearing the end of their useful life. The acquisition is part of an effort to protect and restore the Sacramento River and floodplain ecosystems from channelization, conversion, encroachment, and other actions that may impact the river's riparian habitat areas and floodplain processes. Fall and spring run Chinook salmon will benefit from the protection and restoration of the property. Numerous other special status species will benefit as well, including the tricolored blackbird, willow flycatcher, and Swainson's hawk. The staff recommends that WCB approve this project as proposed. Maggie Blankenship unfortunately had another meeting to attend.
Great, thank you. We do not have any speaker cards for this. Is there any board member comments at this time? Any questions?
Nope.
All right. No letters of support was received. So should we take a, let's move this item, if we would.
So
Yeah,
moved.
I'll-
Oh, go ahead.
second. Second.
So who moved? I'm sorry, Fran?
Yes, and second from Chuck.
Yes.
Great. All right, so Alina Oakday,
Aye.
Chuck Bonham,
Aye.
Diane Colborn,
Aye.
Mary Kreisman,
Aye.
and Fran Pavley.
Aye.
Great, motion passes. Moving on to item number 29. This is to consider the Temescal Ranch in Los Angeles County. Kurt will also provide an overview of this project to you all.
Thanks, John. This is a cooperative project with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The property shown here is in northern Los Angeles County, west of Hazley Canyon Road, east of Lake Piru near Castaic. This area is experiencing an expansion of rural ranchette development on lands historically used solely for grazing. Next slide. With this grant, the Trust for Public Land will acquire an 1,171-acre Phase 2 portion of Temescal Ranch, adding to the 1,230 acres previously purchased, bringing the total to 2,401 of the 6,006-acre ranch, one of the largest in Los Angeles County. The property will be transferred to the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, who will eventually own and manage the entirety of Temescal Ranch. Next slide. The project is part of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Section 6 Endangered Species Act Recovery Land Acquisition Program. There's well-documented use of by the endangered California condor on the property. The condor foraging has been confirmed by dozens of ground-level GPS readings, largely due to the site's proximity to the Sespe Condor Sanctuary. Next slide. The property lies in an east-west linkage between the San Gabriel and Sierra Madre Mountains, as well as a north to south linkage between the Sierra Madre and Santa Susana Mountains, both highlighted in the South Coast Missing Linkages project. These linkages form the backbone of a conservation strategy for Southern California. This property is also in CDFW's Upper Santa Clara River Conceptual Area Protection Plan and is ranked as a Tier 1 priority. Next slide. One of the largest intact stands of coastal sage scrub and chaparral in Southern California, the property supports a wide variety of special status species, the most critical being the California condor and Southern California steelhead. This phase contains the headwaters of 2 creeks, including one perennial spring that ultimately feeds steelhead habitat downstream in Piru Creek and the Santa Clara River. Next slide. 2 funding scenarios are possible depending upon whether a pending Section 6 grant amendment is approved for this grant to increase the federal share. It is anticipated that this amendment will be approved prior to funding. Staff recommends that the board approve this project as proposed. And Paula Perone, I believe, is still on the line with us of TPL.
Great, thank you, Kurt. Is there any board member questions? Okay, we did receive one letter of support from Dan Silver on this item. There is no speaker cards for this item, but is there anyone on the public wishing to make any comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the motion.
I'll be
Chuck,
glad to move it.
and Chuck will second again.
Chuck, you go first next time.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So roll call vote, Alina Oakday,
Aye.
Chuck Bonham,
Aye.
Diane Colborn,
Sorry, I was muted. Aye.
Mary Kreisman,
Aye.
and Fran Pavley.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 30. The Grinzel Ranch in Napa County. John Walsh will present the project to you. John?
Thanks, John. This project involves a grant to the Land Trust of Napa County to allow them to acquire and feed the Grinzel Ranch. Unfortunately, the property was part of the LNU complex fire and a portion of it has burned. We are proposing to present the project as planned, but we'll need to follow up with an update of the appraisal and a new data value. The result of that appraisal will be made available to the board members at the November board meeting. However, we would like to move it forward today. The property is located to the northwest of Lake Berryessa near the Napa Lake County line. Next slide. The surrounding neighborhood is comprised of a wide range of parcel sizes with terrain varying from moderately to strongly sloping hillsides to some areas of gentle valley floor terrain. Nearby protected lands include 273 acres owned by the Land Trust and a 4,125 acre complex owned by Napa Open Space District, BLM, and Bureau of Reclamation. Next slide, please. The property is within CDFW's Blue Ridge Berryessa Conceptual Area Protection Plan. The main objectives of the plan are to conserve and enhance migration corridors, restore habitat, and protect lands that will likely increase or enhance nature-based recreational opportunities. Next slide, please. The Bay Area Critical Linkage Project identifies key linkages between the existing protected wildlands that are necessary for maintaining landscape level ecosystem processes, including movements of such wide-ranging species as mountain lion. Protection of these key wildlife corridors would ensure that Bay Area is connected to the larger landscapes to the north and south. The priority corridor crossing the North Bay extends from Point Reyes National Seashore in Marin to Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument in Napa. Next slide, please. The area is dominated by serpentine soils, which have the highest concentration of rare plants of any soil type statewide. At the adjacent Snell Valley Preserve, 226 species have been documented, including 17 special status species in a 60-acre meadow. The property also provides habitat for deer, mountain lion, bears, olive-sided flycatcher, and other sensitive species. Operating since 1976, the Land Trust of Napa County has established a track record of working successfully with landowners to complete more than 200 real estate projects. The Land Trust holds and monitors 145 conservation easements and owns 10,000 acres of permanent preserves. In total, the Land Trust has helped protect over 70,000 acres, more than 14% of Napa County. Staff recommends approval as proposed. In the audience is Doug Parker, Executive Director of the Land Trust of Napa County.
Hey, John, I have a couple questions.
Yes.
And to be very direct, I support the project. However, your appropriate disclosure about fire impacts causes me to ask a few follow-up questions. To the best of your knowledge, are the funding partners or the grantee on any timelines such that if the board took additional time to do the diligence around fire impact, the grantee and the funding other partners would still be committed to the project? Is there a risk of losing the project if we take a look at fire impact?
I'll have Doug Parker chime in on the timing of his option agreement and such.
Okay. Doug?
Hi. Oh. Hi, this is Doug Parker. I'm the Executive Director of the Land Trust in Napa County. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for having this on your agenda today, and I want to thank the WCB staff who've helped with this, especially John Walsh. Yes, as John mentioned, the property, well, we haven't been out there. Yes, we're confident some parts of it did burn. Those fires can be spotty, of course, as all of you know. It doesn't change our enthusiasm for protecting the property. And in fact, John discussed all the priority species on there. Some of them are fire-dependent species. We have a property right next door where after the Butts fire, which was 2014, we sent botanists out and they found several species they had not found before after the fire. These are native species that germinate and flourish after a fire, and priority species. And we're very confident that after this fire, we're going to be able to go out next spring to the Griswold property and we'll find some of those species. So I think that just further increases or adds to the reasons to protect the property. The landowners do expect to, our auction does run out in a couple of months. The landowners are expecting to, they've made some plans based on what we told them the schedule was. So we would really appreciate your approval of the project today, and we can go back to the appraiser who can look at it. I'm pretty confident that the appraisal is not going to be impacted. There are no structures on this property. Well, there are two old small hunting cabins, but the appraisal made it clear that those added no value to the property. It still has all the same residential and commercial potential it had before. And in fact, this property burned, or parts of it did, in the Butts fire 2014. So I think you can also make a good argument that the appraiser actually did a post-fire appraisal already.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Thank you. So what's the board's pleasure?
This is Alina. I just have a quick question on the appraisal process. So does it go back to General Services for them to review at this point? I mean, what's the process in terms of
what we would do?
Appraisal.
What we would do in that is we would have the appraiser address the fire impacts and the associated impact on value resulting from that. And then we would ask for a letter opinion, and then that would circle back with the Department of General Services, yes.
So John, you're asking for conditional approval today.
Yeah, really conditional approval. That the value would remain the same or go down. And if the value of the property goes down, we would not pay what the amount is here, and we would reflect that in a report back to the board in November. So at the very most, the board would expect to allocate $1,030,000 in this project. It may be something less depending on what the appraiser determines in the review of the fire impacts.
I don't have any further questions here.
Okay.
Do you need me to try to make a conditional motion, or do you have one ready?
I don't have one. Well, yeah, I don't have one ready, Chuck.
Okay. I move that the board approve the agenda item 30 as proposed in the staff recommendation, provided, however, today's approval is conditioned on subsequent appraisal review appropriate processes at the Department of General Service, notification to the board members, and a not to exceed valuation as currently described in the staff recommendation.
Perfect.
I will second that board motion.
Great. So I'll call for the vote. So Alina Bokde,
Aye.
Chuck Bonham,
Aye.
Diane Colborn,
Aye.
Mary Kreisman,
Aye.
Fran Pavley.
Aye.
Great, motion passes, and we'll report back to the board in November. Great, thank you. Moving on to item 31, the Carrizo Plain Ecological Reserve Expansion 6. John Walsh will also provide this report to you all.
This project will allow CDFW to acquire an inholding for the Carrizo Plains Ecological Reserve. The property is located in eastern San Luis Obispo County, approximately 18 miles southwest of the community of McKittrick. The northern, eastern, and southern boundaries of the property are adjacent to CDFW's Carrizo Plains Ecological Reserve, while the western edge is bordered by Sprague Hill Road. Next picture, please. The general terrain of the vicinity and the property consists of grassland, multi-age stands of blue oak woodlands, alkali desert scrub, and coastal scrub habitats. Presently, this region is comprised of larger farming and grazing units with smaller rural residential and publicly owned lands. The property is currently used as a dry grazing pasture. Next picture, please. The reserve is approximately 38,900 acres and includes the American Ranch and North and South Chimeneas units. The Carrizo Plain is a diverse complex of scrub and woodland. The lowest elevations are dominated by spiny saltbush and iodine bush, with numerous vernal pools. Immediately upslope is either extensive non-native grassland or active drainages dominated by saltbush. In the hills, several shrub communities are well represented, including lupine, buckwheat, scrub, oaks, and junipers. CDFW rates the acquisition of the property as a very high priority since it will conserve, restore, and protect declining sensitive species and their associated habitats while maintaining habitat connectivity between the federal land within the Los Padres National Forest and the Carrizo Plain National Monument. Next slide, please. Acquisition of the property and its subsequent incorporation into the reserve will lead to the protection of threatened and endangered species, including the San Joaquin kit fox and tricolored blackbird, as well as numerous sensitive species, including burrowing owl, American badger, grasshopper sparrow, San Joaquin coachwhip, northern harrier, and western spadefoot toad. Tule elk and pronghorn have routinely been observed on the property. Following the acquisition, CDFW will own and manage the property as an addition to the American Ranch unit within the reserve. Management and goals include maintaining, enhancing, and restoring the habitats and wildlife corridors on or in the vicinity of the property, preventing the introduction and spread of invasive non-native plants, and offering compatible wildlife-dependent recreational opportunities such as hunting, day hiking, and wildlife viewing. Staff recommends approval as proposed. In the audience is Bob Stafford, supervising environmental scientist with CDFW.
Great, thank you, John. Any board member questions? We did receive one letter of support from Dan Silver, Executive Director of the Endangered Habitats League for this project. There are no speaker cards, but is anybody on the raising their hand that want to speak about this particular item? So any comments from the board or questions? Seeing none, so I'll move for the call for the motion.
I can move it.
Second.
Move that we approve.
Second.
Great, so roll call vote. Alina Bokde?
Aye.
Chuck Bonham?
Aye.
Diane Colborn?
Aye.
Mary Kreisman?
Aye.
Fran Pavley.
Aye.
Great, motion carries. Okay, bringing us to, we've already completed item number 32. So we move on to item number, whoops, I'm sorry. 33, the Newland Marsh project. This is to consider a grant, to State Coastal Conservancy for a project in Orange County, and Candace Marg. Candace.
Thanks, John. I'll try to make this quick. I know everybody's had a long day. This property is known as Newland Marsh, and it consists of approximately 44 acres and located near the intersection of Beach Boulevard and the Pacific Coast Highway within the city of Huntington Beach in Orange County. Next slide, please. Newland Marsh is a degraded salt marsh and one of 4 major components of the 191-acre Huntington Beach Wetlands Complex, as shown on this slide. All of the other marshes except for Newland Marsh have been acquired and restored by the Huntington Beach Wetlands Conservancy. Next slide, please. The restored wetlands consist of a mix of pickleweed salt marsh, mudflat, subtidal zones, and a small amount of coastal dune habitat. Next slide, please. The property is currently owned by Caltrans, who is seeking to dispose of the property as part of its excess lands program. The State Coastal Conservancy has been working with Huntington Beach Wetlands Conservancy to acquire and restore the property. The wetlands complex is part of the coastal wetlands system originally formed by the meandering Santa Ana River. The wetlands complex is all that is left of an almost 3,000-acre wetland that once existed prior to the induction of agricultural and urban development into the area. Next slide, please. Most of this vast wetland has been destroyed through draining and filling for urban growth, and much of the remaining wetland has been isolated through the construction of the Pacific Coast Highway, channelization of the Santa Ana River, and the construction of flood control channels. Next slide, please. The property provides habitat for more than 80 species of birds and several rare and endangered species, including Belding's savanna sparrow, California brown pelican, California least tern, and the western snowy plover. The wetlands are also home to 2 endangered plant species, the coast woolly head and the salt marsh birdsbeak. Next slide, please. If approved, the State Coastal Conservancy will transfer the property to Huntington Beach Wetlands Conservancy, and the property will be added to their existing holdings and managed accordingly. Staff recommends approval of this project as proposed, and in attendance is Chris Kroll from the State Coastal Conservancy and John Vila from the Huntington Beach Wetlands Conservancy.
Great, thank you, Candace. So any board member comments? We hearing none. We did receive one letter of support from Mr. Dan Silver, Executive Director of the Endangered Habitats League. We do not have any speaker cards on this. So if nobody, is there anybody in the public? Whoop. Somebody want to say something?
I was just going to make a motion to move item 33. No,
great.
And Chuck will second it with a shout out to Chris Kroll at the Coastal Conservancy.
Great. Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Alina Bokde?
Aye.
Chuck Bonham?
Aye.
Diane Colborn?
Aye.
Mary Kreisman?
Aye.
Fran Pavley?
Aye.
Great, motion carries. Well, folks, that concludes our our presentation calendar. We are gonna adjourn into closed session, or move into closed session, not adjourn into closed session. The public meeting will stay in process. The board members will move into a closed session Teams platform, and then we will come back to the open session and report out of the closed session action. So Chuck, you have a...
They say repeat it multiple times. So this platform stays open for the public that wants to stick around. Board members use the separate link for closed session. End of closed session, we join back to this platform, report, I bang the gavel, meeting over, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let's try it. Okay, I think we're back. I see Chuck. I see.
John, I'm back.
All right, there's Alina.
Yeah.
The screen is saying meeting adjourned, but that's not correct yet, right?
No, that was probably your old screen.
Oh, maybe. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and Chuck just sent a message that he's joined back, but his platform indicates that neither his microphone or video work now. So he is here though.
Okay.
And is Fran back?
Fran is not back yet.
Did you need a quorum to come back?
Yeah, we should have a quorum to adjourn.
Let me see if Fran texted me.
And Chuck just said he is going to call in by phone now.
Okay. Celeste, can you tell if Fran is back on?
I don't see her, but right before we went into closed session, I did send her the link by email, so I resent her this link. So just so she has it as a quick touch and she can probably join.
Okay.
Hey, Chuck is on.
Thanks, Chuck. We're waiting for Fran.
Can you hear me? This is Chuck Bonham.
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yep. That's super weird. It just randomly says your video and microphone no longer work.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I do see Fran on.
Okay. As WCB's counsel, I am reporting out of closed session that the board members discussed joining an amicus brief along with State Coastal Conservancy, California Coastal Commission, and the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy to be filed by the Attorney General's office in the case of Sonoma Land Trust versus Thompson. And the board approved joining that amicus brief.
Great. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, marathon meeting, maybe our longest ever.
I think so, yeah.
Great job, everybody. And the remaining 35 people who are still on the conference call. So.
Yes.
Hey, Chuck, thank you for your patience. I thought you handled a difficult situation extremely well.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You either alienated everyone on all sides or everyone is your friend. I'm not sure which one, but you did a really good job in just trying to do your job.
I appreciate you saying that, Senator. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's, that's a challenging situation. Sometimes you have to deal with the cards you're dealt and do the best you can. And I think that's what you were trying to do. So.
Thank you.
Great.
Hey, I might be able to give everyone the single best thing they've been waiting for today. John, is it time for me to bang the gavel and adjourn the meeting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, this is me banging the gavel on my phone. And have a great day. Everyone stay healthy, stay safe, and we miss seeing you in person.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very much appreciate it. Bye.